I, 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 I. He got fired from Kane, now we ain't got no shame. So we started a pod, Chuck Yates needs a job.
Hey everybody, welcome to Chuck Yates Needs a Job, the podcast. Got a good show today. I, despite my better judgment, have invited two Democrats on the program today. Chase West, Larry Baggett, both running for state representative. And it's interesting because I've gotten to know Larry a little bit here, former energy executive. So I'll get Larry to tell us his background in just a second. Chase actually owns the Audio Realm Studios in Richmond, Texas, and is where I probably recorded the first 40 or 45 Chuck Yates Needs a Job podcasts. So welcome in, gentlemen.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Chuck. Great to be here.
Absolutely. So Larry, real quick, give us your background. Who are you and what are you running for?
Well, native-born Tennessean, got to see the world at the hands of the U.S. Navy. I'm currently seeking the Texas House District 3. Lived internationally, worked internationally, and just enjoy traveling, meeting different types of people.
Gotcha. Where's District 3?
District 3 encompasses parts of Montgomery and all of Waller, Texas, where you get over into Magnolia, and it jumps over 45 somewhere. They've redrawn the district map, and we're trying to get a grasp on it.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. Yeah. Have they released the map yet, or they're still working?
They have released it.
They've released it, it's signed.
Gotcha.
The question is finding it and make sure you can understand what changes have occurred.
Yeah. So I've got a really good redistricting story. My brother Jay was chief of staff for Joe Crabb, who represented the Humble area, Republican, and this was, call it the early 90s or mid 90s. And anyway, Joe Crabb chaired a nondescript committee called the Redistricting Committee, which doesn't do anything except every 10 years, right?
Right.
And one day Tom DeLay called and said, you know what? We can redistrict anytime we want. You don't have to do it every 10 years. And so the Republicans redistricted Texas. I bet you remember that. The Democrats went off to Oklahoma and hid out during that. And Jay was chief of staff. So Jay was in effect secretary of that committee and ran all that. And Jay's got wild stories of people breaking into his office, stealing maps and all of this good stuff. And Jay was just like, I thought I had a cushy job while I was in law school. But
yeah, no, I remember that was quite the kerfuffle. What was that, 2003?
Yeah, I said mid 90s and I meant to say mid kind of 2000s, 2010. Yeah. It was interesting times. Chase, give us your background.
Oh, so I'm Chase West. I'm running for Texas State Representative in House District 132 against Mike Schofield. Basically, I have lived in that area for nearly 40 years. I'm a native of Harris County. My opponent is from New Jersey. Don't say get a rope. It's not allowed. But the thing is I'm just tired of seeing career politicians coming in there, letting the lobbyists, get in their back pocket. Because a Texas State Representative makes $7,200 a year. Like that's not money you can live off of. So they're making their money somewhere else, and it's through lobbying. And I'm tired of seeing my area that I've grown up in, that I raised my daughter in, not have actual representation.
Where is that? What was areas District 132?
It is parts of Katy that are in Harris County and parts of Cypress in Harris County.
Gotcha. You know how they got past the state legislature getting paid $7,200 a year? This was, I forget how many years ago, but basically legislators never got paid. And they would try to vote themselves money, and it would always get shot down because of bad publicity. Somebody finally got I'm going to say the good sense, even though I don't agree with it, but somebody got the good sense. They put a constitutional amendment up And it basically says, in no way, shape, or form, under any circumstance, should a legislator ever get paid more than $7,200 a year.
Yeah.
And that's how they did it. People were like, yeah, they shouldn't get any more than that, not realizing that was actual creation of salary.
Yeah.
Good stuff. So I appreciate you two guys coming on, because what I'd like to do is talk about energy policy and just how we kind of navigate that. I think folks know me. I'm a libertarian that probably votes Republican 90 some odd % of the time, unless there's a libertarian on the ballot for stuff. But what I wanted to ask you guys is, like, why are you trying to trash and get rid of my industry?
I don't think either of us are.
Good. And that was meant
I
to be.
100% agree with that statement, because when you get deeper into it, you'll find out we're in support of it, but it can be expanded to way more of a positive conversation by people trying to kill your market.
No, and I appreciate that, and that was my shock question. I thought I'd get a bigger rise. Y'all are too, y'all, for your amateur politicians running for the first time, y'all handled that very well. No, that's what I'd love to talk about. And let me set up a premise here, and we'll see if that leads somewhere. I think folks on my side of the table, energy veterans, energy industry folks, need to understand that CO2 emissions are rising. Since 1950, we've gone from 300 parts per million to 425 parts per million today. And the temperature has risen. I mean, we can all debate on whether it's, ironclad science that there's causation there, or is it really just correlation? But it's something we need to be concerned about, and something we need to be thinking about and at least studying. Because at the end of the day, I've been in a where they grow flowers and stuff, a greenhouse, and it's 1,000 parts per million CO2 to feed the flowers and stuff. It's miserable. I don't want that. I don't want to go outside. But I think the other side, environmentalists, and I understand a lot of their concerns, they do need to accept the premise that burning hydrocarbons has been good for humanity. I mean, your life expectancy as a society doubles when you go from burning wood and dung to burning hydrocarbons, and you can go down all the immeasurable good things that oil and petroleum-based products have done for the world. So there's got to be something in the middle there. So I set that as a premise. And Chase, Larry, one of y'all choose, go first, and we'll take it from there.
What I'll say about that, a lot of people don't realize that Texas is probably one of the most diverse states as far as the type of electricity that we use. We have huge wind fields. We have huge solar fields. Of course, we have our natural gas, our oil, all that good stuff. And I think I told you this the other day, but a friend who was a petrochemical, he had like a master's in petrochemical engineering, had told me that his professor told him one day that, with all of the good that oil and gas and petrochemicals can do for mankind, like all the what's the word? I can't even think of the word. All of the technological advances, basically, we're really going to be sad in the future that we burned up most of it. We've got so many different, ways that we can create energy, and like right now, like we're still blaming the freeze on windmills, and stuff like that. Whereas, we just haven't done our job. We haven't winterized anything. We haven't gone through the necessary steps to make, oil and gas, to make, wind energy, to make solar energy, to make it efficient enough to where we can run our own grid. And
well, I agree with what you're saying, Chase, there. And you've known me now for a while, and I've got the opportunity to talk. I'm a man about thinking outside the box. The windmills, solar energy, gas, oil is great. But I think what has happened, I've got a background in investigation. And a good investigator, you just don't look at the stuff given to you in the front. You have to look at all angles. What's the possibility? What happened with the windmills? They really didn't calculate being in an area that would freeze using these windmills. So therefore, Texans are without power, and you got people playing politics, and people go on rolling blackouts and things of that nature. But I advocate that the main supplier of energy bring in new blood, because right now you have people that think inside the box, right? They're always just thinking the same. And I want to tell a quick story, like Henry Ford. When he wanted to cast all 8 cylinders in one block, he went to his engineer and said, "Hey guys, I want you to do this." And they said, "Well, Mr. Ford, it can't be done." He said, "Great, go ahead and do it anyway." And this went on for a while. And eventually one of the engineers looked at him and said, "We can do this." And the problem is you got to stop thinking in the box. And everyone has served their time as per bringing the market up to this point, right? But you've got to get some new innovative thinker, bring in some new blood, and with some of the more senior people, and we can address these issues better. And they're just not being addressed. They're using the same old thought process. You've got to think outside the box from different angles, something you could never, ever conceive could possibly work, right?
Yeah, it's interesting. On the BDE show that Colin and I do the other day, we were talking about nuclear power, and a VC somewhere said, it's too bad we didn't invent nuclear power today, because if we did, we'd actually go, holy cow, we've solved our energy problem. We've got a clean source. But to kind of drill down on both what you guys say, I think the one thing that I think would be helpful in terms of both sides talking to each other is, I think wind and solar, make a lot of sense in certain applications.
Correct.
As a baseload power, it's difficult to have those as your baseload, because I know we didn't winterize wind stuff and the freeze and all that. I actually did this. If you went and pulled the wind speeds from the counties where the wind power is in Texas, it was all pretty much below 25 miles per hour. And that's what you need. So there were definitely problems that some of those were frozen over and didn't work, but there just wasn't a lot of wind there. But I'm not going to be an oil and gas homer and say you throw the baby out with the bathwater on that. It clearly has its place. We have to come up with a solution where a base load is something we can count on.
Well, and this is what I think. First of all, we shouldn't offer the big oil and gas companies, why don't you write us a letter and pay us $150 and you won't have to winterize your part, because that's what they're trying to do. So for $150, all of the oil and gas companies can say, "Oh, well, we're not going to winterize our stuff." Same with the windmill and solar. I think that's asinine. First of all, we have to winterize our grid. I don't care what it costs. I don't care which company has to pay for it, but we have to do that first. Secondly, a lot of people don't realize that there are 3 super switches in Texas that connect to the other grids. Now, obviously, we want to be reliant on ourselves. I get it. I'm all for it. However, only one of those switches has ever been opened, and that was the one Only one of those switches has ever been opened, and that was the one in Beaumont, and it was opened during Harvey. So we were actually getting electricity from Louisiana. There are 2 other switches, one up in the Panhandle, and then one over near like El Paso that goes to like New Mexico on the western grid. Now, if we were able to winterize everything and secure our grid to where it's going to be reliable, that's what ERCOT's even for, we would have the ability to, say the southeastern grid went down, we could flip that switch and we could offer them power and start making money off of them, and vice versa. Say the power, there's tornadoes up in Kansas or whatnot. Guess what? If our stuff was reliable, we could flip that switch, start charging them for electricity, and vice versa. And most people don't even know that these switches exist. But the reason we don't use them and cannot use them is because at this point, without it being weatherized, we run the risk of damaging their equipment.
Yeah, and that was the the reason the Texas grid is standalone is from back in the past, and I want to say it was the 30s.
Something like that.
Texas actually chose not to join their grid with other folks in order to avoid federal regulation of it. And so that was a political stance from the 30s. I could actually be talked into we ought to join the rest of the grid. I mean, in this day and age, I mean, because the problem is with electricity just in general, there's no way to store it. I mean, if you look at all the battery capacity we have on the grid in the United States, if the whole grid went out, we'd have about 30 seconds of power. Or, a minute or two of power tops. And so, you just can't store in any sort of sufficient amounts power. So I could be talked into we need to join the rest of the grid. I am not well versed enough in power, though, to be able to have that constructive conversation with you. But at least at this point, the right and the left have said, let's go have a constructive conversation about joining the rest of the grid.
And I agree with you because I don't know your background, but I'm not an expert and feel I'm good at investigating, getting details. But you said something too. So I think some of the problems that are occurring is you still got politics. You got to have politics and stuff in some way, shape, or form. But that's why the people, Eric Cox, not being held accountable for those blackouts. No one. You had board members step down. What to do? No one's held accountable. But as I did an interview with a newspaper reporter, and she titled it "Politics Out and People First." We've got to get back to serving the people. I understand these elected career politicians. They like the little special gifts they get. I call them bribes. They don't, When I convince you to vote for me on a way and I give you something in return, that's called a bribe. For you educated people, that's a bribe, whether it's money or a vacation home or a special front of the line privilege. It's a bribe.
So, okay, I'm going to totally change topics here because I want to stay on this point. I knew we'd cover it at some point. Sorry, Larry, you don't know me as well as Shay says. I have ADD. It just jumps around all over the place.
Hey, I'm calm today.
We'll come back to the grid. I think one of the issues, to your point about politics, is ultimately you have to serve the base of your party. Republican has to serve the base. Democrats have to serve the base. Do you feel like an investigation, a discussion, sitting down with the energy companies, crafting a solution, can you do that within the Democratic Party given the environmentalist elements that are important in the base?
Well,
let me ask one other question. Larry, do you have a Democratic primary opponent?
Not to my knowledge right now.
Okay, so y'all are, at this point, y'all are both running unopposed.
Yeah. And I know you kind of asked Larry, but I'm going to hijack the mic here because I feel very strongly about something you said. You said that our job is to represent the Democratic base as Democrats. I completely disagree. My district is roughly 52% Republican, 48% Democrat. When I'm elected, yes, I have to represent the Democrats who elected me, but I also have Republican constituents, and I have a duty to them. As a Texas state representative, your first duty is to the Texas Constitution. Your second duty is to your constituents, and your third duty is to the state of Texas constituents, because you're making laws for everyone in the state, even though you represent this small area. So I had to get that out.
No, that's very fair. And if I was being more articulate, I should have said something to the effect of, can you win the Democratic primary and become the nominee by having a centrist position on energy? I maybe should have said it that way.
And if I can, I'd like to chime in. I think you can. Because one, as Chase and I have discussed with other candidates who are running on the Democratic ticket, we've got to get the party back to the middle. The far leftists don't work. We want many of them, but we will not rubber stamp poisoned, period. We must get back to serving the people and just as far as the Republicans, they get far right, they get so extreme, they have to come back to the middle and sit down and talk really seriously. So you're going to have new Democratic candidates like myself and Chase West coming up that we're going to start changing the face of the Democratic Party here in Texas. We can start with where we live, because now when I was younger, we grew up Democrats because the Democrats stood up for the working class people, the people of color. It didn't matter. But they started playing games. Their poison and infection got in this party, and they began to push poison instead of policies that help everybody. And myself and Chase, we are committed to being the change in the Democratic Party with other members. We talked about a coalition on that issue, and we have to, because there are many Democrats that are flag waving, gun toting, truck driving people in the state of Texas, across this country. And I honorably serve this nation in the United States Naval Service. I've been a police officer. So not all Democrats. That's what's bad. They try to pigeonhole us. And when you talk to us, you go, well, wait a minute, how can you be on the Democratic ticket? Because I believe in certain policies. I've always more identified with the Democratic side because they were more open on certain issues, right? The Republicans haven't changed nothing. They're about big business, big donors. They hadn't had to change. The Democrat Party itself, though, created the situation. So as upcoming Democrats, we have to stand up and say, no more. We have to get on course where we're serving the people, not ourselves, not rubber stamping anything. Well, I've said it repetitively, I will not push poison for nobody.
And we're growing a spine.
Yes.
Because we've been spineless for the last 30 years in Texas. Whatever our party tells us how to vote, that's how we vote. I'm sorry, sometimes Republicans have good ideas. I hate to admit it, but
we're recording.
I
know.
Did you know
we hit.
I did know.
Record?
I did know, but we've gotten to this where it's just extreme fringe politics, whether it's CNN or Fox or OAN or MSNBC. It's whatever is sensational that's going to pick up the media attention, and we got to stop looking at it like that. Because that's not serving the people. When we're, pushing all these crazy bills and we know we have a super majority, like the Republicans do in Austin, what are the Democrats going to do? All the most they could do was break quorum to try to, stop it, which that didn't stop anything. So we've got to grow a backbone. We've got to learn to not be bullied and to talk to the other side just as they talk to us. If that makes any sense.
Yeah, no, one of the dynamics I think that happens is, you're right, there's totally been a bifurcation of what I call advocacy media, right? We've gone from Walter Cronkite telling us this is how it is to both sides fighting and yelling at each other on TV. I think one of the maybe underappreciated things is with the redistricting and it becoming a real weapon. At least what I think's happened partways in Texas is you've created heavily Democratic districts, right? Because at the end of the day, if you're the ruling party, you don't want everything 50-50. You want to give them like 5 seats that they can win 90% in, and then we'll be 60-40 in the rest.
Which is what they've done.
And part of that was driven by the federal government, though, and minority districts. So part of it was on that front. But I think what that does is, when you have a very safe Democratic seat, the most liberal members get elected, and to some degree, that's been the voice of the Democratic Party over the last 30 years in Texas.
Yeah, which is part of the reason why I want to enact term limits for all state elected, representative or officials. I also think that redistricting should be done by an independent council, nonpartisan, to actually represent the people, because the way they split up my area, like it's almost humorous. Like they took one chunk of the Hispanics and moved them out, and then they took a chunk of the less affluent Caucasians and put those in John Rosenthal's district. So they're like, yeah, we gave you two big, Democratic districts. But it's like, whoa, hold on. You just tore our whole, this is our community. And you just tore us all up. Right by my house is now the same community that goes all the way to Alief and West Chase. That's not my district, but how much sense does that make? Those are totally different communities. And then they've got John Rosenthal's district, which was just Jersey Village, in that kind of area. And they moved all the less affluent Caucasians into his district, and now he's in part of Katy.
Yeah.
It's just so my district is just Katy, and then I got to go around Rosenthal, and then I got to go back up to Cypress.
You almost have to have a map to figure out how they were drawn some of these districts.
Yeah.
Going, I don't know if I'm in the right look. I was looking at it on the computer going, huh? Like a deer in the headlight. Look, what? Why would we go this way, jump over 45 and do a loop, come back over 45? Yeah. I've always said, it's comical. Sometimes you wonder how they drew these state lines. And you watch a History Channel, you'll see. You think, I said, no, somebody was just drunk. We're going to mess them up. Watch this. This is kind of cool. We're going to put the county line here, and we're going to break it up and say the county line here. For example, I live in Waller, Texas. Hockley is supposed to be in Waller. Hockley, Texas is, I would say, 20 minutes plus away from where I live at. I'm more closer to Magnolia, about 5 miles. I said, somebody was drunk. They were having fun with us, so. But I want to switch back to something you said about term limits. Mm-hmm. One thing I want to ping off that a little bit too. I'm 100% supporter of term limits. We have to have them because after so long as an elected official, you become detached. Mm-hmm. You don't know no more. You just go. It's just like in my district, Cecil Bell Jr. This is his 5th term of office, I understand. So he's at the end of it, he's got 10 years. Last time, no one ran against him. Do you think he might gotten a little comfortable? You're going to vote me in because I'm a Republican and I'm Cecil Bell Jr. I've been here for 5 years. Well, we can't do that. But I will not only set term limits, but I will not just oversight committees looking at what as official I do, but I want real tangible disciplinary actions to take against a sitting official that thinks you can negate it, say, well, I'll just step down. If you commit a criminal act, we need stronger laws that our elected officials need to be held accountable to and not excused, because so many people, when former President Trump got elected, they said Hillary Clinton's going to jail. She wasn't going to jail ever. You're talking politics. No one, if I've had a security clearance, right? If I'd have done a minute what she had been accused of as Secretary of State, I'd still be in Leavenworth, thinking about when I get to go outside.
If you didn't already have your final meal.
That's right.
Yeah,
you're
right.
Exactly. So I just want, when you're put in a position of responsibility, trust, and you violate it, there need to be higher standards held against you. And you're for violating the law. Maybe some people say that's unfair. No, it's not. If I trust you to be my governor, and I blatantly violate the law, then you can say, well, okay, maybe I shouldn't have done it. No. There's not just words accountability. There needs to be repercussions.
So in our grand compromise, how we're figuring out. And we haven't thrown anything at each other and all that. Term limits for politicians. Yes. I'm good with that. What about term limits for bureaucrats? You can't work for the State Department, and I chose that, or the Education Department, or we probably ought to pick something in the Texas government for more than 20 years or 15 years. I worry about everything you just said. At least a politician is somewhat accountable to the voters. I agree they have that it's pretty easy to maintain re-election and all that. But at the end of the day, a bureaucrat who may wield more power than a state rep sitting there for 22 years, do they feel holier than thou? Maybe.
I think that's something worth looking at. I don't know because I'm not there yet, to be honest.
Yeah.
A lot of those what would be considered bureaucrats or secretaries or mail sorters or whatever who have just been there for 20-something, 30 years, however long, and that's all the only job.
That's a good point. I'll give you that.
So
yeah,
it just depends. You have to kind of look at it and figure out where to draw the line. Like, where is it? If someone has been a staffer to a certain type of representative for so long. Well, if we've got term limits, well, then they're not going to be the staffer that representative anymore. So it's something to look at. I definitely know what you're getting at, but I'm not going to say yay or nay at this point.
No, that's fair. I throw it out there to think about because part of accountability, to your point, Larry, is if they have to go after 10 to 12 years, I'm just making that up, the bureaucrat, to some degree, I think that helps with accountability because beyond that, potentially you're unaccountable. Any idea of how we create something that's nonpartisan on accountability? Because right now, I think what we have is whoever controls Congress investigates the other side and not their side.
Yeah.
I think we're even seeing that in the Department of Justice at the federal level. Here at the state level in Texas, it's probably all the same too. Any thoughts on how we create the nonpartisan accountability?
Well, I think you have to start with it looking at your future elected officials. Because if they have no accountability prior to going into office, don't worry, they're going to have none sitting up there in Austin. I think you have to start there because
some sort of change in the immunity
that's right.
And that's a law of some sort, right? That just says whatever it is that you don't have immunity if you commit a criminal act.
Yeah, 100%.
Okay.
Something's got to be written in the law books not to excuse you and say, okay, well, I'll step down without, I will plea bargain, you're not going to criminally charge me with a felony because what I've done was illegal and I knew it when I did it, right?
Yeah.
It's just like judges. A couple of years ago, we had 3 judges in Harris County. Every one of them got arrested because they were committing felonies from the position they held. So, and they should have been held at a higher accountability because they were entrusted to be a part of not kind of a partial person or a person outside what's going on. The word's not coming yet. But you get the gist.
Right.
But the 3 of them, they were finally held accountable. They were in shackles in Harris County jumpsuits with waist chains like every other criminal. But what made those cases unique were they violated a very important trust. It's like the parent, and this is a very touchy subject with people very angry. It's like the parent that molests their children. They violated such a trust. That almost like a God-given trust that you're supposed to be there for them and you're supposed to be at a higher standard, right?
Right.
So elected officials, whenever you violate the trust of the voter that you're in your district case, is you go up there and you start acting like the rest of them go, what did he say? Now you're up there doing stuff, you're covering stuff up. You shouldn't be doing it. You've got to be held to a higher accountability than the average person on the street. Because you sought out that position. Him and I, we were appointed that. We sought out being state representative members because we want to make a positive impact and change and grow, get some backbone up there in Austin.
And I'll bring up 2 points to that. First, when we write that legislation, can we call it the Paxton Doctrine? Second, sorry, that was too good. I was waiting on it. I was like, okay.
You wrote that last night.
When
Fair
can I
enough.
second, one thing that I've already made a pledge to do is to keep in contact with my constituents. Every quarter, I will hold a town hall, whether it be virtual or whether it be in my area, where constituents can come and talk to me, or via Zoom or whatever, and talk to me about things they're concerned about, or if they're mad about this bill that I signed, et cetera, and I will talk and I will listen. I will reason with them. They could all hate me. It could be a big cuss out session, but I owe it to them to give them that update. So I am vowing to have that quarterly, town hall type session on anything that's going on in the legislature, anything that we're working on, any concerns that my constituents have, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Secondly, I have a cell phone number just for my candidacy. I'd have to look at my phone to see what the number is because I don't call it. But I've given it out on several shows, and it's online. But my constituents can actually call, and it'll go to my cell phone. And I'll, if they leave a message, I will call them back. Or if it's during the day and I'm not busy, I'll answer it and I'll talk to them. I don't know of anyone else who has kind of made that kind of oath to their constituents, to really be there for them. So, I don't care if there is just the most fringe Republican who, wants to call me a commie, whatever, commie tree hugger. That's fine. You're my constituent. So I need to listen to you. What is it that makes you think I'm a commie tree hugger? How can we fix this? How can I change how you view me, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
The days of oil field workers wasting countless hours lost searching for pump jacks and well pads in a maze of unmapped lease roads are over. WellSite Navigator, the most downloaded oil field mobile app ever, now offers turn-by-turn directions to over 1 million wells through lease road navigation technology. We've mapped tens of thousands of miles of lease roads you can't find anywhere else, and we're always adding more. With our reliable directions, oil field workers can drive right to the well site and share custom routes and locations and get more done each day. Try WellSite Navigator for free and get a $10 Amazon gift card for every friend you send us. Don't get lost. Get WellSite Navigator.
Yeah, no, I think that's good stuff. The flippant, y'all are gonna laugh at it, but I'm actually serious about this. I think that the party that introduces a bill, the other party should get to name the bill.
That'd be interesting.
But right? You draft something that's called the Clean Water Act. Well, of course, everybody likes clean water. And I think there would be some nasty remarks at first, but I think eventually it would push people together of, okay, I'm going to call that the Satan Worshipping Act, All right, fine. We'll call it, and
not bad.
Yeah,
not bad.
Let's go back to energy, because this is something that I think is going to be a big deal. If y'all are both elected, we're going to have to work on this together. The industry is going to have to work with the Railroad Commission. It's going to have to work with the legislature, and you're going to have to work with the environmentalists. We have a lot of stranded wells.
Mm-hmm.
You basically, because what you do is you go drill a well, you produce it, and everybody thinks, non-energy people think that a well just runs out of oil one day. It just becomes uneconomic. It's still making oil. It just costs more to get the oil out. So you temporarily plug it, because at the end of the day, you always find more stuff to do in that wellbore, if it's a behind pipe zone or whatever. And then at some point when you deem there's nothing left to do, you're supposed to plug it and move on. Well, people hate to spend money, right? So they don't plug wells. So there are a lot of plugged or unplugged wells out there that are going to have to be dealt with. There are also a bunch that were plugged and abandoned, but they were done 25 years ago, may not be holding today.
And that brine is just saturating
brine is sitting there. So I bring that up because, if you had thoughts on it, let's talk about it. If not, I may make some suggestions.
Well, I'll put my 2 cents worth in on it. And you will probably know this. We have current inspectors that even after they're supposed to be plugged, that goes around on an annual basis or every couple of years to inspect as well. Do we actually have someone at the state level that goes out once these 5 been plugged? Do they go out and do re-inspections to make sure everything's holding?
No, it's. I mean, that's an oversimplification. Railroad Commission's supposed to do it. Railroad generally looks to industry. And generally speaking, look, I think a lot and most of energy acts responsibly, but a lot of folks don't,
right?
In fairness. And so they're supposed to be self-reporting on that. I know of a situation where reports were turned in that wells were supposedly plugged and abandoned, and they just weren't. I mean, the report. So there is something. And I tell folks from the industry, look, I'm energy loud, energy proud, but I tell folks from the energy business, the oil and gas companies, you need to get on top of this and monitor your own and take care of your own, or else the Railroad Commission's going to start doing it in a bad way. Or if the Railroad Commission won't do it, the feds will come in and start doing it.
Well, yeah, and the problem that you're going to have with that is anytime you involve government, things get messed up.
Yeah.
I mean, just being honest.
Yeah.
We really need independent counsels who are, in charge of that. I know the situation you're talking about because
you were
that
executive
podcast.
producer
Right.
of that podcast.
And the fact that her mother died, her cows are probably going to die if they haven't already, and it was just because no one cared. That's a situation that we cannot have. That's the type of situation that enrages the green people, if that's what I'm going to call them. I'm all about environment and being environmentally conscious, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah, but when we're even our own forces, our railroad commissioner is not having any kind of counsel that goes out and checks and stuff, because we know it happens, and especially 20, 30 years ago when oil was just booming all over Permian. There I go hitting stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Even when oil was booming,
the owner of the studio
right.
keeps hitting the mic.
when the Permian was just going crazy, we know where all these where they are. We know where they are. And we're not inspecting them properly. We need an independent counsel, which is going to make jobs. We have an abundance of funds in our budget, so it's not like, oh, we're wasting taxpayer money. I'm sorry, if we can preserve the beauty of Texas and also keep oil and gas jobs going, I think that's a win-win.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think the balance that you two guys are going to have to strike in the legislature when this issue is dealt with is, on one hand, yes, we need to plug and abandon these wells and make sure that they're sealed, no leaks, etc., all that. At some hand, on the other hand, we require so much in the way of certain things that producing oil and gas in the United States becomes more expensive, and all you do is produce it in Saudi Arabia and Russia, and those folks don't care at all about the environment. And so I think when y'all are sitting down at the table, and part of that backbone is going to be having to look at environmentalists and saying, hey, this is actually fair, putting them on a schedule to get it done and monitoring. So that's kind of why I bring it up, because it's going to be an issue. Because I'll just tell you what's happened in kind of the finance world of that. 20 years ago, you didn't even think about plugging in abandoned wells because the working assumption was, all the stuff we yank out of those wells, that kind of pays to plug and abandon it. So it's a zero. So let's not worry about it. And then call it 10 years ago, it became a little bit of an issue. So you at least put in cost to plug and abandon the wells, but it was out in year 40 or 50. So present value wise, it didn't cost much. Nowadays, I guarantee you, anyone looking at financing an oil and gas project, they're talking about how much does it cost to plug and abandon these wells? What's the schedule to do that?
Mm-hmm.
And oh, by the way, we may not actually buy this property because I know the law says we can have a temporarily abandoned well there for a while, but we don't want that on our watch. So it's going to be an issue.
Well, I think when you sit down with them too, and I was referencing the background as an investigator, when we're discussing things, you may be a hatred of oil and gas. You've all you've got in your tank about emissions, things of that nature, what's going on in the atmosphere. But then, of course, a good investigator brings up, well, did you know that it was doing this? Did you know that do you want to debate someone with facts or you want to debate someone with opinions? Because usually if you have facts and I'm coming in with opinions, I don't want to debate you because you can show what service it does provide and not just the negative portions of it. It does, bring more to what the news media wants to report. So I think that's a matter of also knowing your subject when you sit down with them, the pros and the cons, and you can find common ground.
Oh yeah.
You can be a green person, or you can be a gas and oil person. But there's common ground, and it's helping everybody. But the first thing it is, got to get everyone sitting down together and saying, okay, how are we gonna make this work?
Yeah. And it's interesting you bring that point up because this is something else I want to touch on, and this is just my take on things. So critique however you want. Because I've had the Antenna Ranch podcast and various others, there's a running joke. I think there's a meme out on Twitter that says the fastest animals on the planet, the cheetah, the hummingbird, and Chuck Yates with a microphone running towards someone that hates the oil and gas business. But I really am a big believer of we need to police our own. And if something's wrong, we need to call it out and just say it's wrong. And we also probably ought to say, hey, by the way, we messed that up. We're sorry. And it's interesting. So I think through some of that, the other side has reached out to me, messages on Twitter. I've talked to a fair amount on the phone. And what I seem to think, and I even talking to my 19-year-old daughter, I get this vibe too, is it's not necessarily that burning hydrocarbon is per se evil in the environmentalist mind.
Yeah, no.
The true extreme environmentalists just don't trust the oil and gas companies. And so they actually think the rhetoric of the planet will blow up in 10 years, because they don't all believe that. I mean, Obama's not going to buy a Martha's Vineyard house on the ocean if he truly thinks the ocean's going to rise 20 feet. I mean, right? So, but they think their tactics are justifiable because they're having to fight fire with fire. So one of the things, I'd love to hear y'all's take on that. And then my ask would be, it would be really great if we were able to figure out some way to build trust so we could talk about these type of things and find that middle ground you're talking about, Larry.
So I think that trust comes from accountability. Because let's say you go into a fast food restaurant, you order a cheeseburger, no ketchup, fries, and a beverage. We're not going to, and a tea.
Tea. There we go.
Okay, and so fries are cold. There's ketchup on your cheeseburger, and the tea, it tastes like the urn. Well, you tell the manager, and they're like, "Sorry, there's nothing we can do about it." And so you're like, okay, so you take your not what you ordered, and then finally after a few weeks you're like, I'll go back in. You ordered the same thing. Well, this time they recognize you. they mess up your order again and charge you more for it. And you're like, hold on, what? and
What?
that's what a lot of the old school oil and gas companies have been doing. They've been making mistakes. They've been saying, oh, well, and then charging the consumer more
Right.
for those mistakes. And I'm not going to point out anyone in specific, just and in general, that's what's been happening. And, I think if both sides can really start to come to some accountability, if, the left can start to say, okay, burning natural gas is not as horrible as, we've been leading on. Like there are negative consequences. I'm not going to say there aren't.
Right.
But, if
certainly not as bad as coal.
Right.
I mean,
well, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll have to talk to Manchin about that. But if we can just kind of come back to common sense, and that's what I think Larry and I are both about, is just common sense. We're in Texas. We're gun toting, oil and gas, field working, Texas, American loving, red blooded, people. We like our steaks rare. That we're just who we are.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing saying that we cannot come back down to earth. None of us are gods. Sit down at the table and say, okay, I messed up here. How can we fix this? How can we make it better? And over time, actually make it better.
So let's drill down on that, because I really like that point, and it's something I want to do, and I don't have any bright ideas on how to do it. But how do we actually make that happen? Is it workshops? Is it we all go get a beer together? How do we actually do that? Because one, I always have believed the more you interact with somebody, even if you're diametrically opposed, you generally figure out how to get along. It's a lot of times when you're not directly interacting that problems happen.
Yeah.
So
I'm gonna chime in.
Yeah,
I
please
think, like me, I like my cigars. I ain't talking cigarillas. Them are cigarettes trying to pose a cigar. So a real cigar smoker know what I'm talking about. But a lot of times, many times you sit around and you talk to. I'll go to cigar lounges, and I've talked to diverse background. I've learned about things I would have never thought about. And what it is, you gotta stop looking at my Chase and I as Democrats, Republicans, Libertarians. We gotta start looking at each other as human beings. That we have good ideas, we have bad ideas, and we can find common ground. We have to build relationships with each other. Not just, well, you're on this side and he's on that side and I'm over here. Because the whole key thing is working with each other to protect this generation, future generation of Texas from stupidity. And we all agree. We met, there's some dumb people out there. You got plenty of people, and they're only dumb because they don't have factual information. They have false statements given to them and they run with it. But I think building that personal link.
I totally believe that. I don't want to put a percent on it, but I will go ahead. I think 80%, 90% of what people describe as hate on both sides is ignorance, as opposed to true hate.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And, I mean, another way that in the way the parties are right now, like they're so power hungry, but if we could have at least 4 viable parties nationally and in Texas, how much stuff would get done. Like, have 4 viable parties. I mean, we've got like 2 1/4 now.
Right.
We've got Democrats, Republicans, and Libertarians. Y'all
we're not even a quarter.
Like, probably not. I was trying to be kind,
right.
But like,
I mean, I bet you could say 20%. Pro got 20%.
Yeah.
So I mean, unique situation, but yeah.
We had Representative Fierro in El Paso, he one of the first bills he tried to pass this year was HB 49, bringing back straight party voting. And that was my first tweet. Was like, what? What are you doing? I was like, this is the worst thing you can do for democracy is to bring back straight party voting, because it makes people not do their research, and you can just boop Republican, boop Democrat, and that's it. And that is the exact opposite of what a democratic republic is supposed to be. You're supposed to have elected officials, and you're supposed to have taxation because of that representation. But right now we don't have that. We have two parties that are struggling for control, and then we have these smaller parties that really have some good ideas. Sometimes they're a little weird, just depending on which one. But we have several other parties that have some really good ideas, and if we could find a way to make them viable as well, I think you'd find that it wouldn't be so two-sided, left, right. We could have a spectrum of government, cooperation.
So let's do this to close out the podcast, because this has been a fascinating hour. Let's do this. I can really only speak to kind of energy, so we'll keep it in the energy realm. The three of us, we've all kind of hugged it out here on the Chuck Job podcast. What one or two things are we going to do to facilitate that relationship or that communication? And I want it to be really concrete and detailed. And tell you what, Larry, I'll put you on the spot to go first. Chase, you go, and then I'll go last, because that'll give me more time to think. And I'm the host, so I get that.
You get that. We're all flipping on who's getting more time to think about this question, right? Well, it's simple. I'm a people's person, and it's about building solid relationships, sitting down. You're a libertarian. You can be. I'm going to make you a Republican. I'm a Democrat sitting here. You're going to deal with that. You're okay with that.
Dare you?
Yeah.
But we are sitting here, and we're building a relationship, not on the floor arguing and watching the main news media. The main news media, folks, turn them off. They're not about giving you truth. You might as well go watch Unsolved Mysteries, because you might get better understanding. But my biggest thing is about building relationships.
So to put words in your mouth, are you gonna, and I'm sure we can find the money to do it. Are you gonna have the annual cigar party where everybody's invited?
Oh yes.
No politic talk.
Oh yes.
We'll pick a place in Austin to do that once a year.
That's right. You're going to sit down, have a good cigar, and if you don't smoke a cigar, come hang out anyway, because we want to find out who you are and what you think.
There you go. Okay, I like that. So we've got an annual, and maybe to morph it to energy, you're going to host the cigar party. Mm-hmm. We'll either do it in Houston, we're going to do it in Austin. I will put you on the spot. You've got to bring 5 to 10 environmentalists and maybe 5 to 10 people that you think are kind of in the middle. And then I have to bring 5 to 10 industry people that are kind of hardcore, and maybe 5 to 10.
That's right. Put them in the room. They find out they're human beings.
So we need a cool name for this. Cigar Energy. Let's burn it up, or the Burn It Up Party. The Burn It Up Party.
When you say that, I think of the Animal House, and that my house is burning down. That's the image I got, right?
All right, so we've got that. We'll make sure that happens before next summer. We've got the Burn It Up Party, although that kind of offends the environmentalists. I don't think that's fair to do to them.
No, but the gist is to building relationship, forgetting what party affiliation. Just remember, they're about serving all Texans, not just a small select group. And no one's here saying they want to pass new legislation that just outright, they hate mankind, so then if they could blow them up, they would, right? This is not, everyone wants to think they're doing a little bit good for everybody.
Yeah.
And we all have good and bad ideas. Let's come together and let's listen to each other. Don't bicker. Just listen to my view. I'm going to end it here with this. What I'm saying is I've lived and worked internationally. And I've learned you don't have to agree with someone's view, but you must be respectful of the review. And that's it for Larry Baggett.
I got you. Chase,
All
what's
right.
your idea? We've got the cigar party. What are you doing?
Well, my second thing that I'm going to do kind of goes off of that. But the first thing is, oil companies are already getting their subsidies and stuff like that from the Texas government. If an oil company is negligent in something they do and they end up polluting, land or water or whatever, either the subsidy should be removed or there should be a fine, some type of thing, some type of government accountability, to the company that negligently polluted whatever area it is. I know they have a little slap on the wrist. Oh, okay, here you go. That was bad. We need some harsher stuff. If they are damaging the environment, they need to be held accountable. That's the first thing.
Okay.
Of course, we'll meet with people, do a burn party or whatever y'all are talking about. Burning Man at Chuck's house. But
Ray, we're all
Burning Man.
this is the second thing, and this fits in with the whole Burning Man thing.
Okay.
Legalize marijuana for recreational adult use. Because, I know we already have hemp that's legal, but there's a lot of energy type stuff that can come from hemp.
Yeah.
And then if you're legalizing marijuana for recreational adult use, you do a 15% excise tax. You're bringing in $2.1 billion into the state budget where you can form these commissions that are going out and checking these wells, that are, making sure that people are trained properly on this and that. And then you got a lot of happy people.
Happy people.
They're all asleep on Chuck's couch, but
I 100% can tell you, from a police officer standpoint, is I've arrested people with marijuana and I've arrested people that are drunk. They're drunk for the worst. Marijuana people, they just get in the car for you sometime. All right, back here, man. See, that's the problem is people. Marijuana makes you crazy. No, you get around a few drunks. People, they should wear shirts. Do not insert alcoholic beverages. Go ahead, check. I'm sorry.
No. I think that, and as just a political observer, I have not understood why the Republican Party in the state of Texas has not fought for that. Because, if you're the Republican Party in the state of Texas, you're sitting here with Californians moving in every day. And I understand that it is a line in the sand, the social issues that the Republican Party believes in. I get it, in terms of abortion, etc. So I understand that is dear to them, but you've got to throw some sort of olive branch to the Californians moving in. And I've always thought marijuana is a perfect thing to do for that.
It's fiscally a great idea. We already have the infrastructure because we already have the medical marijuana program. So we have the crops. Right now we're paying corn croppers to destroy corn crops. Why not pay them to grow hemp? We've got everything, and right now people are still smoking weed all the time. I can't stand it. But, there are weed smokers all around us. And so, if they're getting it legally, they're going to Oklahoma or Louisiana or Colorado or wherever, they're getting it. And if they're not getting it from there, they're getting the cheap stuff from the cartel,
We did a weird thing because, what is possession of less than an ounce? It's a $25 fine. So, we in effect legalized it, but we're not taxing it,
Right.
Yeah. So and I'm not a big fan of taxes, but yeah.
No, but
I see your point.
It's kind of like the sin tax, if you want to smoke cigarettes, you're gonna pay more because you want to do something that is obviously harmful to your body. You go to a bar, I believe you pay extra for drinks because it's it's something that's not good for you. Technically. So, it runs along the same lines.
You mentioned that syntax, and I hadn't had to give it much thought, but I thought that's the most absurdity because sin is what you decided to be. It doesn't make it right or wrong, right?
Right, right.
I was listening to the philosophers like like Aristotle, the former philosophers, like they said, it's not good nor bad, Chuck. It's how you decided to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What makes it a sin is you. It ain't me. And that's why people argue all day long. That's why when we discuss abortion, there's an argument, right?
Right.
And that just that is you decided. It's just like if I text your message and I don't know what your mindset is, and I was supposed to meet with you, I go, or you were supposed to meet with me, right? And I go, out of kidney, hey, what's up, man? And you're having a bad moment. You just gave that text message a totally different definition than I sent it. Well, you're mad about something, and you go, well, you can go where you can get off, Larry, like that, because you don't know when someone looks at something. What's your mindset?
Yeah. No, I'll do a slight asterisk to your thing. Sin is what mom told me. It's like, don't do that. And she's probably right. Okay. So here's my weird idea on how we help Bridget. I'm going to say it in a political setting, but then we'll apply it to energy. You guys, as y'all are campaigning, it should be that once every 2 weeks, you and your family have to go break bread with your opponent. No cameras, can be at either one of your houses, can be at a restaurant, but no public appearance for it. You should have to go eat dinner together.
I would love to, but he doesn't actually live in my district.
Well, there you are.
In
2021.
Something tells me he's not inviting you to dinner now.
I mean, something with the trolling on Twitter tells me he's not inviting me to dinner also. But yeah,
I think that should have to happen, and to the point, kind of like your cigar party that we're gonna do is the CEO of Chevron. We'll pick on Mike Worth. Should have to go eat dinner once a month, once a quarter, with the head of the Environmental Defense Fund. No cameras around, no media around. Chatham House rules, maybe, Yeah. They can't, they're both sworn to secrecy, but they should at least have to go break bread.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. And I think you'd see a lot of changes. And, they'd have to go somewhere nice, obviously. So you can't make a big scene, somewhere nice. So yeah, I think that's a tremendous idea.
Oh, I appreciate that. Well, guys, thank you so much for coming in. Just real quick, you got a website for the campaign if people want to learn more?
Yes, I do. I've also got something for you.
Uh-oh.
I didn't bring you nothing. He's trying to get a point on you.
You can show both. So that's the website. It's www.westfortexas.com. That's FORTX.com. I got it before Alan West decided he was running, so he had to do the West #4 Texas.com. And this is for you, Chuck.
Oh, I appreciate that much.
A lot of people don't realize that when Chuck would come to the studio, he was obsessed with our hand sanitizer. Well, one of my merchandise things is hand sanitizer. So there's a bunch of Chase West hand sanitizer in there for you.
That is so true, because we were recording all of these in the height of COVID.
Yeah.
And
that is your Christmas gift.
Oh, nice.
It's supposed to be rare. I don't know anything about it, but
oh my gosh. We're not going to sanitize hands with this.
No, the sanitizer's in there.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much.
I also gave you a lighter that has my logo in green for the burn party.
For the burn party.
and
Jesus.
Got you a t-shirt in there. We were going to get Colin a t-shirt. However, when they tried to put the print on it, it was going all the way to the arms because the shirt was so small. So, I can only get you a t-shirt.
Appreciate that. That's beautiful.
Well, I'm going to be honest. I didn't bring you nothing except for me. So I do apologize.
It's been gift enough. I appreciate you coming on.
Hey, no, but right now I have my Facebook, Baggett for Texas House District 3. You can follow me there. I do put videos out. I've done some speaking engagements as well. I bring them back up. So But you can find me there. I do not have a website yet, but I am definitely working with someone. Matter of fact, now that I am an official candidate, I'll have people reaching out to me that's got experience in campaigning from the Democratic Party who's willing to help me to see me move forward in this election in the appropriate way so we get some balance of power and send Mr. Cecil Bell home, let him retire. Well, he's earned his retirement through the state funding. I know he has. So it's time to get some balance of power up there in Austin.
Well, appreciate you guys coming on. And if you're elected, I hope we will, and even if you're not elected, I hope we stay in touch. But I hope if elected, we can really figure out ways to get together and talk about energy. It's just so important to this state.
Yeah.
And we're really having a lot of problems when it comes to the feds. And so it's in Texas's best interest to figure out how to police ourselves and keep the feds as far away from this as we can.
Agreed.
Yes, sir.